IVM.
Hello there. We just overlapped and we have a laugh from our guest.
That's right. We have a guest because today is
episode 50 of Agla Station
Adulthood.
Yes, thank you for tuning in. It's a big one. We are so stoked we made it to 50. Not bad, Ayushi. High five.
Clap.
Yeah. Also, I have to tell our listeners we are recording for the first time in lockdown. Ayushi and I get to look at each other's faces in this conversation.
We are not with each other. But
we have a video support. So that's great. It feels like I'm finally back in the studio with you.
And the problem is now I need to, I've gotten used to explaining what I'm doing because I don't see you. But now I need to remember that just because I see you right now, I don't have to stop doing that. But I'm catching on very quickly.
We are making cute faces at each other and enjoying life like anything.
That third laugh, however, the third laugh is our very special 50th episode, top level celebrity, Instagram, blue
She's
tick.
Going hard.
JK, it's Dash. You can.
I'd like to bring on air my friend Rega Jha, who's a writer and all-round awesome person. Rega, thank you.
Thank you all for having me. Thank you.
We are thrilled to have you because, why not? 3 gals chatting on a pod called Agla Station Adulthood. We have a lot of great with adulthood.
Also, this is she's our first international guest. Mm-hmm. Solely because
I happen to be in Colombo.
So we are using this. We're flying with it. We're very greedy to the fact that now we can say, we're live in many different countries. Shout out to our 2 Dutch fans who write in usually. You are still our first international people.
Really?
That's really amazing.
We have Dutch fans?
Why do you think whenever I get a DM, I'm so desperately thirsty to tell you? I'm look, it's so exciting because sometimes I really it's just nice to see how far and wide the podcast goes sometimes. It makes you happy.
It's a community of baby adults.
Yes, and 50 episodes in means that we've been doing this for a year. Mm-hmm. So, there's lots to talk about, but we are still, cannot believe I'm still saying this, we are still in a lockdown. Things are getting slightly better in Bombay, where most of us are and recording from, but it's still not like a clear pass. We're still not completely out. There's still a curfew. There's still a couple of restrictions here and there. So even while you're listening to this episode, when you're listening to it, I don't really know what the state of the pandemic and legally things are going to be. But as of now, we are in the first week of August and it's still pretty much unchanged. So how about we start with Rega? How have you been over the last couple months? Only because we have been constantly talking. So everyone knows.
I've been okay, actually. I've been, all things considered, not terrible. I realized that there were certain aspects of my life that really required me to be locked in a house in order to nail those things. I am working out regularly, which has never been the case in my life. Because
Amazing.
Because when there were other options, getting drunk or high with my friends and chit-chatting for hours, just going on a run was not the most exciting option. So not having those options has made me work out more, it's made me write more, it's made me cook more. So in that sense, I think one takeaway will definitely be even when we aren't in a global pandemic, I should maybe lock myself in my house a little more just for self-preservatory reasons. So there's been some pleasant surprises in that sense. Of course, I really miss my friends and I really miss freedom. And I really hate this constant baseline knowledge that the world is in a lot of suffering. I think all of our bodies and minds are registering that in a constant way that maybe we don't even register consciously, but I know it's happening. But the thing I'm trying to focus on is just wow, there are absolutely weird positives of a pandemic in our individual lives, which feels so shitty to even feel, right? Like you feel so
guilty. Yeah.
You feel so guilty for being like, oh, some things about this are good for me. Like, am I allowed to feel that? I don't know. But it is the case.
Well, at least one is aware and one.
Yeah.
But you know, Tash, what she said about like our bodies and our minds are probably processing this in a different way that we aren't completely sure of. And we talked about this in our episode when we did about time, when I said that bodies carry historical trauma.
Yeah.
And that we carry trauma. Like, you know, a community can carry it, a country can carry it. Like something that I had read about was like the fact that India, and I'm pretty sure of it, is very evident, is that we haven't gotten over the trauma of partition. Like it's still with us. We carry it in our bones, in our heritage. And so I think what's going to be interesting, or I guess a little bit worrying, perhaps even exciting to see, is just what trauma or what this is going to leave on us a couple years in, a generation in, because there's going to be an entire generation of kids who, you know, who are out of school for what is basically a year, who were homeschooled for a year, who didn't have critical, maybe formative experiences and interactions that you have when you grow up, and adults, of course, out of work, companies realizing that you don't need to be in one place to have employees. So what is that going to do for a market? I mean, like, not just make it an economic thing, but this is all trauma that will eventually come out, which is, I think, wow. I didn't think that would be like, not only do you have to deal with this part, you now have to deal with the repercussions a couple of years down the line, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm with you guys. I feel you. I mean, I have nothing to add to this. I'm just going to jump right in and get to the baby adult stage that we're at right now. And Rega, I want to talk to you about this because I'm about to embark on such a journey too. So I know when you were in Bombay, you had your own place and you were living with Nirali and the cats, which is my favorite dynamic on the internet ever.
I loved, Ritasha, I should tell you, I loved one day, I don't know where I was coming from, I think a meeting or something, and I walked back into my own apartment, and I think I saw Ritasha like lying on Nirali's bed, and they were reorganizing Nirali's closet together. Do you remember this?
It was the one time I had time to kill in Bandra, and I was like, where do I go? So I have messaged Nirali, and I have reached.
Yeah.
Rega is on her way home from somewhere. She has come back with flowers. Wonderful.
Yes.
Oh my God. This is like Ritasha's whole dream of how she wants to live. It was also
my dream. It was also my dream because my dream is I want to walk back into my own place and accidentally run into like two women that I really respect and admire who are just shooting the shit and folding clothes together. I was like, wait, does this get to be my life? Really?
We've been carrying this residual thing of like, we basically want to live in Friends. Like that's where this has come from because we were the generation that grew up watching that. And then we thought that when you grow up, that's what life will be. And it's been a rude shock since it has been otherwise.
But not for some of us. Like, see, Rega has got to live this life with the friend and the cats and the like the work.
That's true. She has a completely I think that between the three of us we're doing all three variations of baby adult living. Means I'm also with baby adults. They are the adults of me baby.
Yes, you are with the real adults. Yes. Now Rega, you've also been with your real adults for a while. No,
I have
pandemic situation.
Yeah.
So I'm also now at the brink of going back to live with my real adults at some point.
Got it.
What's that been like, having been a free bird, having gone to foreign for education? You know, I understand this. Bade freedom se aap rahi hogi.
Correct. Absolutely.
I understand your parents are also chill and wonderful. They great. But what's that been like as a 27, whatever? You're 27, right?
28.
You are 28 as a 28-year-old.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I also turned 28 this year. So on the show, I have to keep saying we're a bunch of 27, 28-year-olds just to be like respectful of Dash.
I think we should just go with late 20s, which I also find to be a cool phrase. You know, I don't know why. 20s. Late 20s. I'm like, that's a cool part of life. Living with my parents. So yeah, you're right. I have not lived with them since I was 17 because I left for college. After college, moved to Bombay, lived there by myself. So it has been now 11 years that I have not lived with my parents. And through these years, of course, I'd visit them and they'd visit me, but it would be for like 2 weeks at a time or like we'd go on a holiday somewhere. which is kind of like you stepping outside your real life, right? Like when you're on holiday, you're not really all yourselves. You are your holiday selves, which is like a slightly more pleasant, more like
very grateful, very like I'm loving this time together.
Yeah, and like spontaneous and leisurely. You're like, let's go to the park for a picnic. That's not who we are in our real life, sadly, though we should be. So being here with them now, it's been 4 months, I guess, 4-5 months. It's actually been pretty amazing in that I feel like I'm getting to know them for the first time as adults, as in like I'm getting to know them as adults, as individuals, not just like, in relation to me, like my mummy, papa, but like individuals. I'm getting to observe like what are their days like, what are they like when they have a bad day, what are they like when they have a good day, what are they excited to talk about. And then we're also navigating a new dynamic as 3 individual adults, right? Rather than child and parents, because they, to their credit, like wouldn't dream of telling me, don't do this. Don't. Like I smoke, for instance, at home. And that's something that, I know a lot of us would hide from our parents when we're younger.
Yeah.
But now they respect that in me. They obviously like let me know that like, this is a pretty stupid habit. And I'm like, dude, y'all are right. Like I'm also not reacting as a child, being like, no, you can't tell me what to do. I'm like,
I know this is my crutch. Like I'm aware.
I'm like, dude, fair point, man. Like fair point. So things like that, where we're able to actually interact as rational grown-ups, not be triggering each other constantly, not be in this like controlling and rebelling dynamic, but just like humans. And the other thing that's amazing is, I think, I've been in therapy for a couple of years. So like that is individual work that I have done based on my imaginings of, not imaginings, but like my impressions of how I was parented, right?
Yeah.
And now to have all of those insights and to be with my parents all the time and to actually be able to spot those different patterns and behaviors as they are playing out, and to be able to sort of step back and, hear a comment and actually step back and be like, oh, that's the kind of thing that built XYZ impression in my mind,
Yeah.
But now I no longer have to have that affect me. I can just sort of observe from a distance. So it's, like we talk a lot about reparenting, right? That's a whole conversation of like unlearning your original parenting and then doing some for yourself. So to have done some version of that, but then to be now with my real parents is like my real parents, as if there are some other parents. To be back with my parents, it's very interesting. Natasha, I think you might find the same, because I know you've done some of that. You've done a lot of that work. So I think you will also maybe have a similar experience.
I'm also excited in that sense. Yeah, I'm happy to like go back home. The way I'm looking at it is that I want to go back to this place that was like nostalgic childhood comfort and get recharged. That's my agenda.
Yeah. Where are your parents?
They're in Bombay only. I've just taken a very hard route of I don't know why I've left their house and like rough it out on my own in Bombay itself, like an idiot. Now I'm like, let me save some money in this lockdown.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, you're also coming back closer to
Ayushi.
So I'm super excited about you moving home, because your residence was truly very far. But so both of you are now like you said, this reparenting, which is interesting because we always talk about this relearning and unlearning and relearning, and like that's the new way, right? You're supposed to like navigate. And I think something that's been really interesting is trying to teach my parents that in lockdown.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, we're living together and we only see each other. All your meals are together, and I mean, I love them. They're very cool. They're like I mean, like I have no complaints of them as people, but mentality wise, obviously it's just a generational difference. And so there are certain things that no matter what you say, it's like I can accept something very easily when it's just said to me. But with them, it's a question of like, how are we going to like, why would you do that? Like, but this doesn't make sense. And you're like, but you don't have to. For example, one of my friends just came out of the closet. And this was a huge shock because like no one saw it coming, and it was just completely out of left field and left, right, whichever. I don't know which side it was, but in the sense like it was a shock, like to me, to our friends, everything. But my first reaction was, yo, we just got to make sure that this person is okay. And this person knows that they're loved and that nothing's going to change and it's fine. Like they're on a journey now, and whatever that journey is, we'll be there for you. But this person is also close to my family, and because we've known each other for so many years. And when I expressed this to my mom, her first reaction was, she started crying. And I was like, well, why are you crying? She's like, well, you're saying that he was so upset and he, like, you know, this happened and that happened. So is he okay? And I was like, well, good. Your first reaction was concern. And then the next morning she was like, maybe there's something else, you know, now that it's a spectrum, you're saying, maybe it's not like confirmed. Maybe there's still some time to think about it. And I know that she's doing the work in terms of trying to be the person that's okay with this and learning and accepting that there is, that first of all, it's not a choice. This is who you are, all of that good stuff. And I could see that work was trying to happen, but her wiring from just her genetic and not genetic, I mean, just her generational upbringing was like kind of fighting, being like, maybe there's still some hope that this person will be straight. Or maybe there's some, like, maybe they'll turn it around. And that whole process of the last week of like speaking to her about this and having that conversation, while it has been like tough at times, I'm really proud of them and of myself, because I think I am the reason that they have changed. It's just because she's now she won't call it relearning and all, because she thinks these are all very foofy young words that she don't care for. But I think that work is happening where now the concern is not so much about this person's lifestyle and what it's going to be now, but it's more like, is the person okay? Like, is that person feeling loved? Is that person feeling safe from their parents? Are you making sure of that? And I was like, this whole relearning thing, it's interesting because they seem to be doing it just as much as we are.
For sure. I was just thinking like, you know, one aspect of becoming an adult who, you know, is doing all of this for ourselves is that we start to understand that everyone's going through the same thing. Yeah. Everyone's questioning their own patterns. Everyone's looking closely at their own childhoods. And to be able to extend that lens to our parents themselves is part of the work, I think. You know, and I think part of this, like, through the 20s, unlearning, relearning, unparenting, reparenting, like basically what that trajectory looks like is like at some point you develop the courage and the clarity to be able to look at your own parenting and be like, you know, these were the things that they got right. These are the things that they got wrong. You might go through a point where you're mad at them and you blame them for, you know, fucking you up in the ways that you consider yourself fucked up.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you forgive them and then you become generous to them and you're like, you know what, you also had a childhood. And let's look at that. Like, I remember in my therapy process, at one point I realized, I have to stop looking at my own childhood and I have to think about my grandparents, you know, and I have to think about what their traumas were, what their pressures were, because those created my parents and those created me. like you could just endlessly go back to like our one original ancestor somewhere in Africa. Be like, what were that guy's traumas?
This is why I'm f***ed up.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could also like see it from like just the other angle, right? Like think of just how amazing like the cosmic energies must have been to bring all these different people into the paths that they were on, so that your grandparents could meet, your parents could meet, and then that's who you are. Like
this pile of up could be born.
Yeah, but I'm saying, look at I truly, I think I want to look at it the other way. Be like, I'm actually a miracle of chance. You know, like it's this amazing cosmic chance that connection happened for this one to exist now, for us, for the three of us to be sitting here having this conversation. And it sounds like I'm being like ultra like grateful now, but if one thing, this pandemic just has brought a lot of that to the forefront of like, hey, if you're going to take you know, step back and analyze all this shit, it's also equally important to look at, you know, like you said, the positives. And it makes you, but this is the stuff that I can think of as a positive without feeling guilty. I'm like, man, this is not like a blessing thing. This is just like it's grateful for my parents. They're really nice people.
Yeah. Like overall, we are glad to exist.
Yes.
Yes, I write it in my journal every day. I'm grateful to be alive. And
yeah. I will say most days. I will provide that caveat. There are some days I'm really not glad to exist. I'm like, yaar, kyun aana tha?
We have done this also. We're like, who signed us up for this lifetime membership? Nobody asked.
Ayush and I have beef because our parents did not take our consent before we were born.
Exactly. We're talking about this. We're like, you're screaming consent from the rooftop, but nobody asked me. I am just here, and you have made me want to succeed in life, have ambition.
Yes.
Like all this parenting, this stuff, you didn't ask me. You could have easily been like, beta, finish, get married, have children. No, you f***ed it up for me.
You gave me independence. You gave me ambition. How dare you?
We've been mad about this before.
We have,
Yeah.
But what I think is so cool is that even our parents, at whatever age they are that age for the first time. And they also don't know how to be a successful, functional 55-year-old, 60-year-old, whatever year old that they are.
Dash, that's sick. Like, that's a sick one.
That's a beautiful thought.
We are also still figuring our age shit out. So I'm guessing they are also at the first time at this point. Also.
Basically, I think what you're saying is they need to have a podcast called Real Adults. And just like talking to each other, my kids just suck. What do I do?
Do you all feel like your parents at your age were realer adults than you are? Like my mom at 28 had 2 kids. She was keeping us fed. She was managing her in-laws. Me at 28, I'm like, it would be nice if I fell asleep before 5:45 in the morning one time. That would be nice. It would be good if I managed to work every day.
Bruv, like I literally just told you all before this, my mother was married and had me at 30. I am downloading Hinge at 4 a.m. at night, being like, chalo, one last try karte hai. Let's try. Life is so different when you put yourself at that age. And actually, if anything, I think that's my only sort of beef with my parents, is that anytime I say that, life it's really hard right now, I'm struggling, or I have anxiety, or like I'm not coping as well as I would like, or I am in a thing, I don't know, but like the first reaction is always like, dude, at your age, we were doing it. Like we were fine. We were managing it. I was working. I had in-laws. I had you. Like, and I was like, I need props, man, but I don't know how you did it. I can't do it. But Dash has been doing some version of it.
Yeah,
like, that's true.
You've been doing the partner household.
So I think I jumped into it far too early. And because both my parents have had a very... So my mom quit school after 10th grade and she started working because she wanted to support her brother's education and all of that. So she's seen the hustle kind of life from her teenage years. And my dad hasn't, he's fully studied to become a doctor and all, but then the hustle began of moving to Bombay and like whatever, starting a life. So I've seen them hustle hard for most of my childhood. So hustle has always been like ingrained that, okay, maybe this is like what I have to do. And I think I jumped into it at a very early age. At 23, 24, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to settle down. And I did. I fully settled. I have a house with the sofa and everything. Like there's everything. It's proper.
Means you are fairy lights, dude. It's happening.
And like there's an idli steamer and all also now. So even the kitchen is fully, like there's a kadhai, there's the channi, there's pressure cookers. It's proper. It's a home. And in this pandemic, I have woken up to realize that, okay, I'm 27, going to turn 28. It's time I make decisions for myself now. So I decided to move out of this situation and live a less domestically committed life so that I can pursue this. So I don't know if they were realer adults. I guess we are all the same version of the maximum realness one can reach at this point of adulthood.
We do keep ourselves alive. We do earn our livings. Like we do manage those things.
Correct.
Absolutely.
We do all online interactions is done by me. Come on, what would you do without me?
And maybe my lens on what they were like is because I was a child. So to again, extend full personhood to them would be to think that, maybe at 28, they were also confused.
Absolutely.
And they were also thinking that, like, am I doing things right? Is this, maybe they felt like shit shows in ways that I couldn't understand because I was the child to whom they were perfect. Formed grown-ups,
But I also think that maybe it's been so long since they were 27, 28 that they also have put away a lot of that and been like, yeah, we manage, we're here, we're doing fine. So obviously we did it absolutely fine back then as well. And
right.
I suppose when we get to that age, God willing, everything is according to whatever plan that you have. It's kind of like, I hope to look back and be like, yeah, I mean, I managed, like it was fine. I got through it.
Yeah.
But maybe you're right. Maybe they also had that back then. It's just something that they don't have to actively think about anymore because they're through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, friends, shall we slip into a little break at this point?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. We come back and continue this chit chat.
Beautiful.
See you on the other side, listeners.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another amazing week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So another really fun week on the network. I don't know if you saw this, but Varun Thakur was on Advertising is Dead. That was a really, really fun episode. Besides that, we've had some great guests all over the place. We had Ram Madhvani on Cyrus Says. We had Saurav Mukherjee, a legend in the finance space. He was on Paisa Vaisa. He and Anupam have co-written a book, so definitely do check out that episode and go buy their book too. I mean, like, that would be another great thing to do. Uncle Pleased had a really, really cool episode with hosts of our other show, Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Anirudh and Janice. They were talking about celebrity culture and how that's progressed for the last few years. And yeah, it's just been a really, really great week. One episode I do want to shout out. A couple of weeks ago, Pulyabazi did an episode which was just amazing. They were talking about the letters between Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore. Do check those out. Those are really good. But with that, let me get you back to your show.
Welcome back, listeners, and Rega and Aisha.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Okay, so we were talking about just kind of relearning, unlearning, because, and in relation to our parents and their history and how we connect with them and our new relationship with them. Because if one thing this pandemic has offered is a lot of us have gotten this chance to kind of get to know our parents, like you said, as actual people and not just in relation to us, which I like that description of getting to know them like that. Oh God. I have just got an email from my HR saying happy holiday for Raksha Bandhan. So I got very distracted. I'm so sorry. I was so professional and then I got distracted.
It's okay. There, Aishi. Welcome back.
We'll allow it.
Yeah. Thanks.
You both have brothers, right? Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Do you all want to talk about Raksha Bandhan?
Dude, no. I'm not interested in talking about him. He has taken his girlfriend to a weekend getaway trip. So he is living life. I'm not giving more attention.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
No, that's not important.
I have thoughts about being 55.
Yes! Come on.
Which we just spoke
But
about.
I do have one question for you after that 55 thing. So we'll circle back to it. I have a question. Write it down. You say 55.
My thought is, so because of Indian matchmaking and because of some events in my personal life, I started thinking about marriage a lot. Okay. And I guess generally at 27, 28, like this is...
Yeah, Naz.
So, exactly. It's just like a very stressful, dark cloud that like hangs over life, right? Which is some of your friends have had weddings at this point. Some of your friends might be having children. It's like the template of life says that around this age, you get quote unquote serious in certain ways.
Settling down.
Now that template does not align with my personal life, right? Like that's not where the events of my life are at. And I'm personally quite happy with the events of my life. But because of this external pressure, I started having quite a bit of anxiety a couple of weeks ago. And I think this is like the broader anxiety of being this age is, especially with regards to marriage, but with regards to other things also, work, money, whatever. You start thinking, am I doing things right so that when I'm in my 50s, when I'm in my 60s, I will not regret the decisions that I make in my late 20s? There's suddenly this notion that like now is the time to set up the life that I will be chill in. 30, 40 years from now. And I have been actually trying to shake off that understanding of the future and of decision making. And I'm trying very hard to convince myself that this is life. Like I'm already living. The way life works is not you make decisions when you're young and then you reap rewards or you regret decisions later. It is now you do what you want and now you do what feels authentic to you, and that then you live with the consequences, right? Whereas the way I was seeing it, and I think the way that especially marriage is set up is like, one day you will regret it. Like one day when you need to go to the hospital, one day, and I'm like, when is this one day? When exactly is it? Can someone give me a date for this one day on which I have to be perfectly content with everything I did in my 20s and 30s? And I was wondering if you all feel that. Like, how do you reckon with decisions now, consequences later? How do we get around this? Do you know what I'm saying?
I fully get it.
Yeah, she is that left-right voice. What you've just described is that this side you want to be like, no, we are okay. And this side is like, you're old, your eggs are drying.
Yeah. And you're making decisions now that you are really going, like you're f***ing up your future by being this independent, shaking off the life template, etc., etc.
So we've talked about this before. I call it the prescribed life.
Yes.
And
yes.
It's funny because our parents did it, I think, because they did not have another option. I don't think, especially our moms were, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think my mom was in that kind of, she fell in love and she was very much like, I want to start a family and live this life. Mm-hmm. Even though she'd been working and earning and all of that, she was like, no, when I get married, it's going to be different. But for me, I saw them back when I was a kid and I see them today. And for myself, all I want maybe is not even this companionship that they have. Of course, companionship I crave from inside for life.
Yeah.
But I'm beginning to understand more now that different kinds of friendships and relationships can fulfill needs. And you don't need to heavily rely on one person who's your spouse or partner to be like, you fulfill everything.
That's also a lot of pressure, I think.
On one person.
I feel like listeners should know that as Ritasha was saying the sentence, different kinds of friendships can fulfill that need. Ayushi and I were just nodding to the extent that our heads were about to fall off our necks. We need this consolation so badly right now.
Yes,
right?
Yes. And there's this other thing where, and this is something that, Tash, you were still saying things.
That's it. So that's one part of it. So this understanding that is coming, that you don't need one person to fulfill every need. It's not that you need to find another half to complete you. It's about rewiring one's brain. But what does strike me as something that I would like to emulate is seeing my parents professionally well settled. That's something that I do want to work hard for now, so that I can have when I'm 50 or 60, to have that credibility in the work that I love and I want to do. So that kind of, I do think about work-related and professional future plans.
Yeah.
The rest of it, I think the personal life stuff, I am much more relaxed about now. It's not something which I'm actually very excited to just be on this journey now of living this best, most authentic life now and seeing what happens. I've been doing it for a couple of years. Anyway, now
that's what I really want to get to. I want to get to, I'll see what happens.
YOLO. YOLO. Just YOLO it. And my dad always told us this from the time we were kids. He was like, do whatever you want, just face the consequences.
That's it.
And we've done that. So that's why Ayushi will attest to this. She knows my sister and I are both just on our own trips.
I was just thinking before we got on this call, I was like, what even is adulthood to me? What do I understand as an adult? And the only answer I kept coming to is taking responsibility for your own shit, which means being responsible for yourself in the practical ways, which is okay, you earn for yourself, you feed yourself, you know how to do those very physical things that keep a person alive, but also taking responsibility for your choices, sort of laying out that this is what feels authentic to me right now. Say, for me, a very logistical one is freelancing as opposed to having a 9-to-5. I'm that's what feels possible to me right now. That's what feels real to me. There might be a day when I look back on that and I realize that I missed some incredible opportunities because of it. But being an adult means knowing right now that I don't have control over the consequences, and whatever they are, I am responsible for them.
Yeah. Accountability.
Yeah. That's a big one, man. It's too much. It's to be,
It's very daunting. Actually, that's one of the things that does get me down some days. You want to live your truth and you want to live your best life. But also, you know that should this go wrong, and there's a voice in your head which creeps in and being like, this could go so wrong. And when the shit does hit the fan, what do you do then? So what is a responsible adult thing to do at that point? Maybe have a contingency plan. Or make sure you're surrounded by the support you need. And I think that's one thing we can at least do, is just make sure we have the support in terms of friends and family. Like, guys, I may be doing some shit and I'll own it, but you guys need to be there to listen to me, crib about it sometimes. And have my back, no matter what.
Oh my God, that's so helpful. And that to me feels like a very good articulation of like what your 20s are for. Is like, build your safety net.
Yes. In every possible way. That's financially, professionally, with your mental health, with your relationships. I'm with you on this. Ayushi, bataiye.
I mean, dude, you guys haven't left much for me to say in terms, because I agree. Like, I do agree with Rekha in terms of having this problem right now. Not problem, but this kind of internal back and forth that you do with yourself. And I can attest to the fact that I've seen Tash make a lot of decisions based on just, this is what I want to do, so I'm going to do it, and let the chips fall where they may. And sometimes the chips
they do.
Sometimes the chips are crumbs, and sometimes the chips are a lot of money. So I mean, like it's. I'm saying it's paid off, and you've also had a few regrets or whatever. I mean, no harm, no foul done, right? But
no regrets. I would say lessons.
Okay, yeah, correct, lessons. But as like just my personality type has never been in terms of like, live your truth or live your best life, and who are you just honestly, like and it's not, I mean, my tone might sound like I'm mocking it, but I'm not. It's just something that I've never been comfortable with, because that's my internal chemistry and my internal like hardwiring is that you are not supposed to go around wearing your heart, emotion, feelings on your bloody forehead and tell the whole world constantly what you're feeling. And I mean, look, this is something that I told even Ritasha when we were talking about having you as a guest. And this is me being my truth, my honesty.
Yes.
Something that I said was like, Rekha, she has a lot of feelings. and Ritasha was like, and so Ritasha was like, dude, I adore her because that's exactly
a lot of feelings.
And I was like, I get it, because I tell her constantly on the show, you need to rein this in. This is just a lot of feelings that you're having.
I was just going to say, Ritasha and I are like professional feelers.
Yeah, feeling.
Yes. And she is a person who is okay to cry. And for me, like when I cry, it's kind of the thing that I have to notify like 4 people to be like, it happened. I want proof and record that it happened this year in the last 6 months. So everyone knows that I'm not completely dead. There is something inside.
Yes.
And it's not like a point of pride. It's something that Tash knows. A lot of our listeners know that it's something that I've struggled with. I have been working on actively. So to kind of weave this back to what you were asking earlier in terms of at 55, are you going to look back and wonder, did you do it right? Or are you right now just having to convince yourself that, no, this is life? And that's a very valid statement that you made, that what's happening right now is the now. Like this is
the life.
It's happening.
This is it. If I'm fine now, that's it.
Qualifying round for race day Sunday. Like it's not like that. Every day is race day Sunday.
Yeah.
I get that. But for me, it's always been more like, I have an idea of what I want my future to look like. I don't know whether it's going to look like that exactly. I don't know whether the house will have exactly those windows or panes or what it's going to be like, obviously, but it's more like I know what I want to be able to do with my time and my wealth at 55.
Yeah.
I have a very clear-cut idea of what I want to be able to afford money, but afford myself in terms of experiences or luxuries or opportunities, like to help, to give back. Something that I've always, I mean, I spoke to Natasha about, like, we talk about charity and sometimes like, oh, are we doing enough? Are we giving back enough? And I'm like, I don't know, like right now, if I have to hustle X, Y, Z so that I can become that person who gets to give back like shit tons of money, then that's the goal. Like I'll work towards that. And so if it means living less of my truth or living less of this, like I'll just do whatever I want and see where it goes. I mean, first of all, I'm not even that kind of a person. Like that's not even something that I'm desiring to do on a daily basis. But there are some days where you wonder, like, should I just, I don't know, should I do something else? Should I? I mean, I used to be good at theater and debates and I love fucking talking dime a dozen. So I'm like, should I just do something full-time with that? Like, what if, but again, then my better judgment, like I call that the voice of judgment for myself. And I don't know whether that voice is right or wrong, or whether she's completely got a grip on stuff. I don't know where she gets her confidence from. I have no idea. But she's just like, babes, when we're 20, when you're 55, you want to be able to give your kids every fucking thing that your parents gave you. And that's something that has pushed me so much. It's a conversation that I've had with my friends, with, something that Dia and I were talking about, Natasha, when she was telling me about the stuff that she's going through. And something that Tash and I talk about is just, I refuse, like categorically refuse to be the person who didn't give the same opportunities that were given to me to whoever my next of kin is. Like, I don't know what that's going to look like. I hope that it's a family that I can be proud of and that is happy and safe. But I want to be able to give back. So if I have to work towards that, because I know what went into them working to get here for us.
Right. Yeah.
So that kind of stuff pushes that voice away every time I am asking myself, like, is this worth it? Like, are you really gonna, like, do you really want to be doing this? And do you want to just, I don't know, like some people's Instagram handles, like, leave and join the circus, whatever the that means. But like that vibe, do you want to do that? And then I realized that no, I don't, because I know what I want to do. Like, I don't know whether I live to see that. I hope I do. But I have an idea of what I want 55 to look like. I don't know.
And something you're making me think of is like choosing our truth, whatever that might be, always entails letting some other options go. Like you have to sacrifice the circus so you can provide for your family. Whereas for me, I'm like, okay, if I choose the circus, then I open myself to the possibility that at 55, I will one day feel sad that I don't have a family that I'm, taking care of, but that invariably I'm going to have let one thing or the other go. And like, maybe there'll be bad days where that is the fact that I'm reacting to. But then after that bad day, there'll be another good day at the circus.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because I have that, my fear is the opposite, that I'm going to be 55 and I'm going to have done all this stuff or like work towards an XYZ goal. And there's a possibility that goal that doesn't work out. So I may have worked for nothing at all. And then the other option is that I land up at 55 and I'm like, oh shit, like I wasted my time. I wasted my life and now it's halfway done and I can't do anything about it because I'm stuck. I'm stuck in that commitment of life. And
which is why it feels important to like think of life as the now thing.
Exactly.
So the verdict isn't like one day,
So that's why I agree with what you're saying in terms of like a constant reminder is not so much like, so all of what I just said is what I was like, I still am like, but something that I've been working on is, like you said, is knowing that, but it's not about just 20 years or 30 years down the line. It is about now. It is about valuing this moment and like understanding why you're doing what you're doing for this and not like that. But then again,
it's so easy to drift off.
Yeah.
Into like, so I don't know if you guys have had this, but especially in the lockdown, I've had a lot of time to think. And
too much, man.
Correct. It's too much time to think. We're not supposed to be thinking so much.
Yeah. And like I've actively had to remind myself on so many occasions, Natasha, stay in the present. That is a problem for future you, or that is a problem that got over and it's not with you right now. So can you stay in the present? And Yeah, of course, at large, everybody wants to have a well-settled life. Like, nobody wants to be 55 and broke and homeless. Yeah, nobody does, especially like people with the amount of privilege and the parenting that we do. Of course not.
Exactly.
You want your Maslow's hierarchy of needs to be taken care of at the bottom. But yeah, you can't let that get in the way of this. And I've had to remind myself that so many times.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes I wonder whether, and this is like when you get to that really dark point, not dark point, but you get to that inside lump of magma, whatever is at your core, and you're kind of like, do I even want this? Like, as in, do I want it because I want it, or do I want it because I'm a product of certain socialization, or I'm a certain product of privilege, or product of a certain upbringing? And it raises that question of, and then I get stuck in this trap. And I think I don't know whether you feel it, but just hear me out. It's like, of course I want companionship and partnership because I have not only physical, but also emotional needs in terms of wanting to spend my time with someone. But then I'm like, do I only want that because that's what everyone around me has or wants? Or is it because I need to fulfill some sort of biological need of mine to procreate, or I don't know, like create that connection and then have that anchor and tether yourself onto something really, really sort of real in life? And then that question kind of just goes around, and I'm like, do you need to be that person who has someone? Do you need to be the person who has a husband and children? I mean, because I'm straight, I'm saying in this way, everyone has their own dynamic. And that kind of scares me even more than that 55 question, because I'm like, I don't want to enter something and get into something for the wrong reason. I'm so terrified to do that. However, there is no one trying to get into it with me.
You still downloaded Hinge.
This is like a premature problem that I have.
I think that's such a good point. And I feel like one thing I've spent the last few years very actively doing is trying to separate core needs from conditioned needs, which is like, okay, there's a core need to feel loved and accepted and to feel like you know who your team is.
Yeah.
There's a conditioned need that what that love and acceptance will look like is a husband who fits a certain archetype that you had for a source of love. So and for so many other things, right? There's a core need to express yourself physically with your physical aesthetic identity. There's a conditioned need that expression will be thin, fair, straight hair, dressed a certain way.
Like where you learned this core and condition.
I love it. I have to take it down notes, by the way. I've written it. Vega, as soon as you said it, I was like, pencil no.
Because I think this is an episode for us, Tash. We got to get into this.
It's so
and
good.
We are always looking for topics. We are thirsty for topics.
Oh my God, please do this one. And it applies to every aspect of life, right? There's a core need to do work that feels fulfilling. There's a conditioned need that your job should be impressive to other people and other people should understand. And I've just been working so fucking hard to pull these two things apart and be like, I need to provide my core needs to myself. That is the work of an adult. And I know that if I go with the conditioned needs, I won't end up happy. That's why you have to shake those things off, because I think another thing we can learn from our parents' generation is a lot of people led that prescribed life perfectly and are miserable.
Yeah.
Right?
So many.
So let's not do that. Yeah.
And doesn't that kind of also worry you that no matter how much it looks like someone's getting it right and someone has gotten it right based on your idea of right, and don't make me say this again and again, but you know what I mean?
We understand.
Yeah. It's it scares me that even though it looked like it was right, it was wrong. You hear of people who got engaged and then it ended. People who got married and within a year of marriage have decided to walk away from it. And look, good for you. Good that you made the choice. It's a brave choice to walk away from those kind of commitments. It is.
Mm-hmm.
But it worries me, because I'm because I don't know, I still, in my mind, and I feel really embarrassed to say it, but I am someone who sees that as failure. And I see it as... No, Tash, don't make that face. You know that.
Sorry, no, because I literally just had this conversation 4 days ago in regards to my commitment situation. And you finish what you're saying, then I'll say what I'm saying.
I know. I was just saying it like if like my one day, inshallah, it will be someone. If something was serious and I had to walk away from it, or the other person, like, whatever it is, I don't know, my brain still sees that as you couldn't make it work. And you didn't, there was a deficiency in. And I fully am aware that that's not true. Like there's 1,001 reasons for things to, stop existing. And there's no blame game. Like I know all of that. I'm fucking smart. Like I'm fully aware, but that doesn't stop me from feeling that
smart and all.
I'm smart,
but I really
need it. Yeah.
But like, why do I have to embarrass I didn't know that. No, I know it. I'm just saying that I still feel that sense of failure. Even now, I'm saying even in like a mini relationship that falls apart, which is fine because actually you look back and you're like, it was good. We didn't belong in that relationship. We really didn't. But it still feels like, I don't know.
Does it feel like failure because it looks externally by that prescribed life template as failure?
It's me that thinks that it's failure. Like I think that you didn't get it right.
And sometimes that's true. Like I look back at a lot of my relationships that ended and I'm like, oh, I did actually. That was on me. Like I was the one who made those mistakes. But as Ritasha said, lessons.
See, I too am prescribing to this other school of thought, which is not even scientifically backed. Sorry, Ayushi. But I firmly believe that people come into your life for karmic reasons, and you have time spent with them for karmic reasons, and then they stay in your life only for the amount of time that they're supposed to. And I think every relationship is a success in its given life, the life of the relationship, however long it is. I would call it a success. I wouldn't say it's a failure for that time. Because again, it's always that thing of no matter what interaction you have had, no matter how much or how little somebody has touched your life or you have managed to touch someone else's, there has been some transactions that have taken place in that period of knowing a person or loving them or being friends with them or sharing yourself with them. And it's part of the self journey. It's just adding more things to this puzzle that we are trying to put together of what is this me in this grand scheme of life.
Of course. I mean,
that's all.
I really agree with that. And like, I realized that like when I was a kid, rom-coms, like, can they all just stop existing? Because I thought the way love works is you meet one person.
Yeah.
You're talking to Ritasha, who is the brand ambassador. You're looking at Ritasha, who's the brand ambassador of Karan Johar himself.
But these rom-coms have ruined our generation. And maybe generations before, who knows? But at least we have that thing of knowing now. We know that, oh God, rom-coms ruined us.
Yes. So the way I thought love works is like you meet one person, you end up together, it's perfect forever, right? And then now at 28, I look in my own life. There are such incredibly non-linear journeys I've had with people. There are people that I dated at 14. We both made mistakes, but, we got back together much later and it was beautiful and now we're best friends. There are people who I dated and we were both really toxic and we had the most fiery, like destructive fights. But then we found another template of closeness that works. And now these are all people who are in my life permanently, who I feel incredibly loved and supported by. And we wouldn't have gotten to this point of love and support if we hadn't gone through like the roller coasters that we have. And I've never seen a movie that glorifies that template, which is that you and people you love will occupy many rooms of love together. Some of them will be pleasant, some of them will be romantic, some of them will be sexual, some of them will be platonic. And all of that makes up your journey with a person. And there'll be many of these with many people. I'm like, why didn't anyone tell me? Like, why did I feel, exactly like Ayushi was saying, why did I feel a sense of failure when we were just exiting one room and entering another room of love,
That's really nice. That's a great way of putting it. I mean, it's like, I think something that we talk about and we say to like listeners when you're having that conversation openly is like the adulthood takeaway here, or like the adult decision to make, or the right, quote unquote, the right thing to do here is to look at these things and think that you're right. This is just, it's like the waning and waxing of the moon. Like this is just another phase. It will come around full circle and you'll come to some sort of peace and consensus. It will move and you will find the next. And that is definitely something, like you said, that these people are still in your life. Tash can attest. Most of the people, I think like 99% of the people that have been in my life in some sort of romantic sense are still actively in my life now. I would go so far as to say 2 of them are like very, very good friends of mine now that I rely on like a friendship basis. And so I'm super glad. And that's, again, something that I've worked on to be like, no, I'm going to scrap at this till we fix this, and we're going to like find a way to like peacefully coexist and create that. But for me, whereas for you that comes from a way more balanced and holistic place, for me it comes from, we will right this wrong. This will not be a failure.
Oh my God, maybe
we will make this work. This is not how this ends.
It's very possible that's what I'm doing also.
But it's like that you have to work at that. And I think the adult decision to do is like to know when you have to work at a relationship and when to walk away from them. And be like, sometimes it's not worth it. It's just not worth your time, your energy, your own like mental space to be like, and there's something that I need to teach myself is that you don't have to go behind you don't have to try to fix them all.
Oh my God. Yes.
You just have to fix yourself. And that's it. Because, at the end of the day, he was not worth it.
Only you are worth it.
Yeah. Rekha's right. I'm sure there are times when there has to be some ownership that you have to take of the like messes. Like you have to know that it can't only be on everyone else. There's a lot of onus that you have to take.
But basically the feeling is like, this notion that all of our journeys, like whether it's our journey with romance, our journey with work, our journey with our families, I really thought growing up that these are linear. Like you build, you ascend, you reach stability, and happily ever after. Movie ends, director yells cut.
Yeah.
And I'm just realizing the longer that I am a baby adult, that it's really not like that. Like these are all really meandering roads with lots of different stations to just plug.
Thanks for the plug, God.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But it's like, I would say even Tash and I are a little bit of a testament to that. Our relationship now is so strong and where it's at because we had a very toxic middle, like incredibly toxic.
In school, we used to be really horrible to each other for a brief period of time. And guess what? It was all about a boy.
Let's put it this way, Tash. It started maybe because of that, but then it became, I think both of us, honestly, it wasn't even about we were fighting about the same, and not at all, because never would I like to give that person that much attention. It's more like...
but it was because of all our conditioning and my problems and how I attached value to crushes and female friendships in school as opposed to now. And at those times, it was very different.
But it brought out a very toxic side of both of us.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think if you ask me like something that I'm ashamed of in my life is that I was able to say such things to another person.
So
how did you all repair it?
I guess we just
it was
grew up. I don't know.
No, in terms of
were apologies made?
Tash came up to me and she was like, I'm sorry, it was a lot. And I was like, yeah. And then I realized that the response is to say, yes, I'm sorry too. And that was a lot. And but I think it took a lot of, I'm going to judge myself only for saying this, but it took a lot of bravery from both of us to be like, that was horrific in terms of nobody should speak like that to each other ever. Least of all women, like, because it was a lot of woman on woman hate, it was a lot of like that disgusting toxicity that you see in movies,
high school girls.
Yeah, and it became about
Bitches.
literally, we were just bitches, and
Bitches.
you turn around and you're like, no, then that's an active choice. And from that moment on, you don't want to be that person. But I think that was great for our relationship, because I don't think we've ever been those versions of ourselves, not to each other, not to anyone else ever again.
Lessons.
Lessons.
I don't remember though ever making up. I just thought we organically became best friends again.
No, it was in Goa.
Oh, at 12th standard Goa.
Yeah, like after we finished our boards.
Everybody's drunk and like had too much fanny.
It was
Natasha, that's so interesting, because you're the one, like in Ayushi's memory, you're the one who initiated repair work. You're the one who went and apologized first. And you're like, pata nahi kaise hua yaar. Like, but you would just refuse to internalize that you did this.
But
this amazing, brave thing.
But I think the reason why I remember it that way is because, to me, that step that she took forward was what like, it was so ingratiating for me to like, I'm not saying there was not damage on both sides, but I'm saying for one individual to be like, oh, I'm starting the process of forgiveness and repairing this. I remember that being as that step and being like, okay, if someone is doing that work to get to you, who are you to be like, no, I'm not going to. Yes, you may pat yourself on the back.
Enough about this now. Let's move on.
I mean, I had a blast learning about y'all's incredible
it's not important. We're on episode 50.
They all
This is a beautiful thing to acknowledge on episode 50.
Yes. Yeah, say sorry. If you f*** up, just say sorry.
Say sorry.
Oh my God.
And relationships are winding roads.
There is nothing that comes out of nothing bad that comes out of saying sorry. I mean, it's just, you can say sorry and then have a conversation after that. Definitely have the follow-up conversation. But dude, pride actually is poison. It is. And that's something that the question that I wanted to ask you, actually, I think it may be a nice way to wrap things up. Not wrap things up, not that I want to wrap this up at all.
I think we can
so fun.
Lightly touch upon few little things and then go to a wrap up.
Okay, so kind of the question I wanted to ask was, if you were to pick, and I know this is like those horrible questions where you just like one thing only, but if you were to pick an adulthood takeaway or a lesson that you've learned in your last maybe 2-3 years that is a standout lesson or something that's really kind of changed you for the better or made you look at life a different way, what would you say to listeners or to young adults listening?
Or to us also, please.
I mean, like, the conversation is kind of like, what is something that you would say was a huge benefit for you to learn?
I would say this is a lesson that I know in theory, and some days I embody and other days I struggle to embody, right?
Yeah, fair.
But the lesson itself is, and I said this earlier in the episode, some version of it, that we are responsible for ourselves. Like, we are accountable for the consequences that our actions have. We are responsible for fashioning ourselves into the people that we want to be. We are responsible for choosing our values and then doing the like incredibly rigorous work of becoming people who live by those values. It's very easy, I think, and I've seen a lot of people our own age and older than us who tell the story of their life in terms of external events that happened, that this happened and therefore I had to choose this thing that I chose, or just my husband made me do XYZ, my family, my parents made me do XYZ, my boss made me do XYZ. And I think one thing I'm trying very hard to convince myself is, in each of those moments when there is some sort of external pressure, you still have a choice of whether you give into it, whether you question it. And I think that's the thing I'm trying very hard to believe, though I know it in theory, I don't always embody it, that my life story is a thing that's not just unfolding without my say in it. Like, I am authoring it, and that's the
Amen.
That's great, man. That was super articulate and you crushed it. 10
Please
10 answer.
convince me of it. I can articulately lay it out, I guess. And the day I believe it will be when I graduate from baby adulthood to actual adulthood.
You know, the problem is we started this concept, right, of baby adult. And then what we've done is we've walked ourselves into a corner.
Because we're not going to be baby adults for much longer.
But we don't know what the step off point is. I don't know when you like level up. I'm just still waiting for it to happen. But maybe this conversation is kind of like a reminder that that level is here. Like you're here. There's no leveling up or down. You're just
yeah.
Oh no, I would say we're still baby adults till age 35 at least.
35?
I would say, give or take. I think that's a reasonable negotiation.
Let's do a reunion for your episode 5,000 when we are 35 years old and see how we're feeling
in the next 7.
Dude,
I hope that if we do that, we'll be like, what shit did we talk? And look at all of these new lessons we've learned and the garbage that we believed when we were 20.
Why wait till 5,000? Let's lock you in now with an audio commitment that you'll come at 100.
Sure.
So then, that's like we can have you every year, and it can be just like
adult consulting.
You can be a consulting adult.
Done.
Expert on the baby adult subject.
But I love that question, Ayushi. What is the answer for y'all? As not just baby adults, but
just
baby
people.
Adults who are examining baby adulthood on a professional podcast. What are y'all's biggest lessons from the last few years about being adults?
I think one of the biggest things that I've had to work on is a lot that I am a work in progress. And I had, because I have a very strict idea of what emotional balance looks like, what physical balance is supposed to look like, what your professional balance is supposed to look like. I've had to do a lot of this. I don't like this word one bit, but I've had to do a lot of like unlearning and relearning in terms of shut the up, Natasha.
Ab aaya oot pahad ke niche.
But it's been a lot like you're allowed to feel bad about things. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to verbalize your sadness. You're allowed to feel jealous. You're allowed to feel feelings. Like upset is something that Natasha and I came up with because Ayushi, like for me, it was like, I'm not upset because I'm not upset. This has not upset me at all. I am not upset or perturbed by this. I am a vessel of still calm water. But however, I am upset, which is when a puppy gets upset. So it's like maybe upset. Like
just a little bit Alexis upset.
Yes, what the impression I'm getting is like you just have to make things sound cute so you can stomach them. You're like, I'm not an adult, I'm a baby adult.
This is a problem.
I'm upset.
And this is something that she and I have come up with because that's like my crutch of like, that's how I like navigate.
You just need a cutesy vocabulary
to kind of minimize it.
It's a coping mechanism.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I think just learning that you don't have to be 100% strong all the time or 100% appearing strong or in control. Like I have a lot of control issues, like because I do not like not knowing how I'm going to feel about something. I don't like it. I do not enjoy it. It gives me no pleasure to be left hanging in terms of not knowing that response or not knowing the feeling. And I think it comes from a lot of like a place of a lot of rejection. And that's something that I'm learning now. Like I've been able to look back and be like, oh, it was because of that massive college fiasco and like going through that whole academic rejection process that really with my brain. And it made me just incapable from then on to differentiate just an unfortunate incident to it being actually just another rejection. Like I find every way of being like, once again, I have been rejected. And I have to, and because I've never allowed myself to feel that properly or to accept it, I know that it's caused a lot of repression, a lot of like holding back consistently, and it's a lot of work. And so my adulthood takeaway has been like, if anything, you can be sad. And I know that that's a like little sad thing to take away from the last couple of years, but the allowance of being sad has, in a really sweet way, made the happiness far more potent. Because it's allowed you to just be like, oh, when you were sad, but look at this glorious other thing that came out of it, and look at the adventure that you had. And now I can look back at life and be like, this was an adventure. This was that non-linear journey to be where you are. And I'm so impressed with who I am. I am constantly impressed with myself. I adore myself. And that's been like that adulthood thing of like, you weren't rejected. You are worthy of a lot of things, and you get to feel it. Like, you are allowed to feel it, which is something that I'm constantly working on, is like, you're allowed to feel things.
Yeah.
The adults. But it's been a lot of work. Like, it's been a lot of work of that. And Dash has helped me. This podcast has really helped me.
I was just going to say, I feel like Ritasha actually provides this as a public service, like just reminding people that they're allowed to feel all of their feelings.
Because constant feeling ka bhandar is over there. So then,
it's incredible, dude, because otherwise you sign into Instagram. Everyone every day is publishing one book, winning one award, getting married, having babies. And then you go to Ritasha's story and you're like, oh my God, this person is like me. She was crying at 2 p.m. She's killing it at 6 p.m. She's chilling in her balcony at 9 p.m. Same. That's what a person is. It's multitudes.
I will still say thoda less crying, please.
I have reduced my tears.
Yes, you have. That I will support you on this. I will back you up. You have truly reduced the amount of tears.
Yeah, and period around the corner, tears will come. Otherwise, we are under control. Okay.
Nice.
Ritasha, what's your big adulthood journey lesson?
Regaji, I am glad you asked this question. Now, I will tell you guys. I have realized that whatever's going to go on in the world is going to go on in the world. But whatever's going on in this world, my inner world, is the only world I can kind of control. So my biggest learning, if I would, has been, or realization learning, whatever the thing is, I can rewire my brain.
Yeah, man.
And I can only think good things. And all this shit about thoughts become things and you can will it into existence. I'm like, yes. I can rewire my brain to create this life to create this person that I want to be. And of course, there are bad days where you're like, oh God, I suck, I'm the worst. But then quickly they'll pass because quickly you lift yourself up and you're like, no, come on, we can rewire. So I think this rewiring trick...
we did a whole episode on it, by the way, listeners, if you're looking at rewiring your brain.
What was the episode called?
Fake It Till You Make It.
Oh, that one, yeah.
There was some science also in that if you want to listen.
Yes. Some neuroplasticity, is it?
Yes, you and the big words. You are a writer, you know.
Because I went on this trip also, where I was like, I can become who I want to be.
Yes.
And I can do that? Wait, what? Yeah.
I like this episode. You know what? Like in my mind, if I'm being candid, like I had, based on how you write and like your just level of articulateness or candidness in general is in my mind. I was like, oh, she's probably like got it all figured out and she knows what she's up to.
Mad or what?
But not in an insulting way. I'm just saying it's very like emboldening to know that again, it doesn't matter what things seem like. Yeah. Everyone is kind of on the same. I don't know. We'll see.
Figuring.
But yeah, I mean,
just figuring.
It's good. I enjoy these weekly sessions and thank you so much for figuring some stuff out with us.
Thank you all.
Any more parting wisdom?
Yeah, bata do.
What dishes have you mastered in lockdown? Come on, tell us.
Oh my God. Matar paneer.
Wow.
Aloo paratha.
Wow.
Biryani I made.
What a plate.
Oh, wow.
Did you put elaichi?
But the true parting takeaway is, I think,
so serious.
I have a feeling that you all will agree because you do this every week and you enjoy it, is nothing makes this meandering weird journey more tolerable than chit-chatting with your friends.
Handopi.
Oh, that's a cool one. I'll start using that. I'll be cool with the youths. But really, like, honestly, if I my primary coping mechanism for this insane thing that is existence is having honest conversations with well-meaning, loving company. And I think everyone should just do that a lot.
Yeah, like
I'm a big proponent of chit-chat.
We love, as you know, chit chat, but this is, you said it in the beginning as well. Your 20s is to build that community for yourself, that safety net. And one huge thing is create that bond now, because that's kind of something that will hold in good stead through the years. If you've done it right, if you've nurtured it, much like a plant, those fruits and flowers will keep coming if you give it the right kind of attention and work. Yeah. So thank you.
And it's amazing because the work itself is so fun.
Yes.
It's good fun. Too good. It's good fun. Chit-chatting is fun and it pays off. It's too good.
Yeah. Well, as always, Tash, should we wrap up now, or because the thing is we can continue. That's the dangerous thing is that
no, we are not continuing. I think I just want to again just give a little shout out to what Rekha brought up, which was the conditioned needs and the core needs.
We will do an episode on that.
We will, but I think it's a great place for everyone to just at least start assessing where we are with those.
Ask yourself that question.
Yeah, and we'll get more into the meat of that next time, maybe next time. I don't know.
Yes, and thank you for listening to this episode. As always, we're going.
Rekha, where can our listeners find you? I'm sure your listeners are going to find us firstly, but where can our listeners find you? Tell them.
They can find me on any of the toxic internet platforms that all of us spend all that time on. Like Rekha Jha, whichever major American corporation you love most, Twitter, Instagram, find me there.
So you're just at Rekha Jha, right? On both these platforms.
At Rekha Jha. My parents gave me a nice, unique name that other people don't have.
So nice and short and sweet. I like it.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, you can find me on at AyushiA9 on Instagram and at Just Ayushi on the Twitter.
And I'm only on Instagram at RYTSH. Thank you so much. You can listen to more podcasts on the IVM Podcast Network or on the IVM Podcast app. And please keep listening to Agla Station Adulthood. And thank you, Rekha. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Much. Thank you.
It was great. We hope everyone enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. Bye, guys.
Have you ever wondered how successful people do their thing? How do they navigate the challenges they often face? Are you wondering about the future of restaurants, film, education, technology, and everything else in between? Hi, I'm Gauri Devidayal, best known for being one of the brains behind The Table, an award-winning restaurant in Bombay. One thing my life as a restaurateur has given me is the opportunity to meet with some truly inspiring people, most often just by chatting with strangers at the community table. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about learning the new dimensions of business and understanding how different people swim this sea. It's an opportunity for me to pick their brains and ask them all the questions on my mind, whether it's about learning from their past experiences or talking about future trends. Through their journeys, stories, and insights, I hope you too, like me, will come away inspired and energized. So come, join me every Wednesday with your favorite drink, because this round is on me.
Are you constantly seeking happiness? Wondering how to make the most of every day? How not to let your inhibitions stop you from achieving your goals? It's now time to get your A game on. It's time to unlock your true potential. Tune in to the Empowering series with me, Zarina Poonawalla, to feel empowered in all genres of life. From behavioral skills to management skills. From health to relationships. From mental well-being to emotional well-being. And of course, your finances. I've got you covered. With these tips and tricks from me, Zarina, and true life stories from my amazing guests, you're bound to bring your purest to the table. Tune in to the Empowering series with Zarina Poonawalla every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.